Earth abides, a double bill that raises the stakes but loses its way. The world has ended. The survivors are few. But as we dive into episodes 4 and 5 of Earth Abides, things take a darker turn, introducing the kind of tension and danger that has been missing in the earlier, more idyllic chapters. However, with this shift comes an overwhelming sense of absurdity, episodes that are as frustrating as they are thrilling. What begins as a promising escalation soon unravels into a series of head-scratching decisions and clumsy narrative choices. By episode 4, we've already lived through 14 years of the apocalypse. The passage of time, however, is handled clumsily, as if the show itself has forgotten how many seasons have passed. Characters change, relationships evolve, and children are born and grow at an alarming pace. In fact, it's almost impossible to keep track of the number of children each couple has anymore, which leaves the audience feeling more confused than invested. But despite this, the double bill of predators and the return introduces much-needed conflict, even if it feels more like chaos than calculated storytelling. A rising tension, the water crisis. The setting is San Lupo, a tight-knit community struggling to survive after the collapse of civilization. Things have been peaceful in this small haven, almost too peaceful, but that all changes when the issue of water becomes a matter of life and death. San Francisco's water supply is drying up rapidly, and desperate times call for desperate measures. Enter Charlie, a new arrival with a convoy of survivors and a plan to drill for water. At first, Charlie seems like a savior. His charisma, rugged charm, and apparent expertise are enough to make the weary survivors put their trust in him. Even Ish, the community's reluctant leader, begins to think they might be in luck. But there's a catch. The more Charlie talks, the more he reveals his true nature. He talks about Darwinism, the strong surviving while the weak perish, and his strange, almost unsettling views on survival. Something about him feels off, and even Ish can't ignore the growing sense that there's more to Charlie than meets the eye. Yet, as the community celebrates striking water, their relief turns to horror. Charlie's true colors are revealed in the most brutal and horrifying way imaginable. After a night of celebration, he assaults Evie, one of the members of the group, with shocking indifference. The betrayal cuts deep, not just because of the violation, but because it shatters the fragile trust the community has built. Charlie believes that because he's brought water to San Lupo, he's earned the right to do whatever he wants. His sense of entitlement is chilling. A moral dilemma. The reckoning. The revelation of Charlie's true nature shakes the foundation of San Lupo. Ish and Emma, who had once trusted Charlie, now find themselves in a moral quagmire. The question is simple. What do you do with a man who has crossed such a line? But the decision is far from easy. The ensuing debate among the survivors is tense. Emma, devastated by the violation and the betrayal of their trust, is resolute in her belief that Charlie must be killed. Her anger is raw and unrelenting. Others, like Jorge, hesitate, questioning whether violence is the answer. But Emma's argument wins the day. In a shocking moment of violence, Ish takes matters into his own hands. He kills Charlie with a hammer, an act that feels less like justice and more like an explosive release of frustration and guilt. But the fallout doesn't end there. In the aftermath of Charlie's death, the survivors face an even more difficult challenge, their own divided loyalties. Some members of Charlie's crew want revenge, while others are simply too shaken to know what to do next. Ish's son Alex becomes particularly disturbed, his loyalty to Charlie clouding his judgment. The moral implications of Charlie's death and the way it affects the dynamics of the group are barely explored, leaving the audience with more questions than answers. A shocking twist, the return of the virus. As if the tension over Charlie's death wasn't enough, the virus that originally decimated humanity makes a return. This time, there's no explanation for why the disease has resurfaced or why some are affected while others aren't. Instead, the virus becomes a convenient plot device, a way to deepen Ish's growing guilt and to amplify Alex's increasingly selfish tendencies. Alex, who has already been a rather unsympathetic character, becomes even more insufferable as his brother Joey falls ill. As Joey fights for his life, Alex's jealousy takes center stage, overshadowing the crisis at hand. He resents the attention Joey is receiving, annoyed that his brother's illness is drawing all the focus away from him. It's a moment that tests the audience's patience. Can we really sympathize with a character this petty, this narcissistic? It's hard to care when his selfishness reaches such disturbing levels. The final moments, a somber conclusion. By the time the credits roll on episode 5, it feels like the show has taken us on an emotional roller coaster, one that ends with a jarring sense of apathy. Ish, consumed by his guilt over killing Charlie, retreats into himself. In a strange moment of self-reflection, he prays to Jesus, despite having been a staunch non-believer up until now. It's a poignant moment, but it feels disconnected from the larger narrative, as if it's trying to give the character depth without truly earning it. Meanwhile, Heather returns from an ill-fated journey with Rafe, only to reveal that Rafe has died. The loss is handled with little more than a shrug. Another casualty in a world that's become numb to death. At this point, it's hard to muster much emotion over what's transpired. The show has moved so quickly through pivotal moments that the emotional weight has been lost, buried under an avalanche of time skips, unsatisfying resolutions, and narrative shortcuts. In the end, Earth Abides episodes 4 and 5 introduce tension and danger, but they also expose the flaws in the show's execution. The stakes are higher, but the characters' motivations and decisions feel increasingly hollow. The writers attempt to stir up suspense and drama, but in doing so, they sacrifice the nuance and depth that could have made these episodes truly impactful. What should have been a moment of reckoning instead becomes a series of melodramatic missteps, leaving the audience to wonder just how much more of this mess they can stomach before it all falls apart completely. As the survivors grapple with their moral dilemmas, the virus, and their fractured relationships, the show's true nature begins to reveal itself, not as a poignant reflection on humanity's resilience, but as a bleak, meandering tale of survival where the stakes are high, but the payoff is far from satisfying. Earth Abides has raised the tension, but at what cost? The world may be ending, but it feels like the heart of this story has already been lost.